Spectrovision Radio.
They claim that our eyes will just be created a slightly different from what they are. We talk, we see things are not normal.
Welcome to Strange Fuzz Monster Familiars, or what are we calling it?
Fuzzy Familiars, I suppose, yeah.
Oh, that's
Fuzzy Familiars. Welcome to our now annual, many years tradition of the Monster Fuzz Strange Familiars Halloween episode. How you doing, guys?
Good, yeah. How are you, man?
Very good, very good. And yourself, Tim?
I'm doing all right. I'm hanging in there.
It's like, is it 4 years, Tim? I think.
Is it now?
Which is, I think it might be like, which is a kind of a mad achievement for a few reasons. Well, one is that, and you're going a lot longer than us, but for both of our podcasts to be still going that long, but also to have this tradition for that long is quite a cool thing, actually.
It really is cool. And here it is 4 years, and neither one of us has gotten rich yet. So
no, we're still waiting.
And it's not looking good. It's not looking good.
I got into this podcast game for the promise of riches.
We got in literally as the arse fell out of it as well, which was the funny part. Like, I think it was like Adpocalypse happened in like January, and we came in April. Well, that was that.
No, that I am very happy. This is not me complaining for anyone listening. I love my job, and I happen to get in at the right time, and you know.
So we're here for the love of the game, Tim. You know.
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
We're here for the love of the game.
There you go. Exactly. Oh yeah. No, I absolutely love my job. I love it. Like I can't get enough. And times I'm like, on the editing side, I might get frustrated or tired or something. But then like you get to this side of it where you get to just talk about weird stuff, and it's just like, man.
I think there's people that just have a compulsion in them to share stuff, and whether it be a story, whether it be music, and you're a musician as well yourself. But I always found, at least with myself, that there was always something that compelled me to put stuff out there.
Yeah.
And I don't know why that is. It's not even a thing where necessarily I want the feedback even, but I just enjoy sharing things with people, I think, a little bit. And podcasting's great for that, yeah.
I've come upon this theory lately, and people are going to soon get tired of me saying it, but it felt revelatory to me, so I find myself saying it again and again. And not to get religious or anything, but if you read in the Bible, it says like we're created in the image of God. I don't know if we look a thing like God, but I think how we are like God is that we create, and I think we get something from that, And for me personally, I have to be creating. I will flip into a depression if I'm not creating. And that can take the form of anything. For people listening, it could be cooking. It could be raising a family. It could, it doesn't have to be drawing or making a podcast or painting or whatever. But I do think it's important. I think it's an important part of the human process.
Yeah. And if you think about humans in general, that's kind of what we do. We just keep creating and making different versions of the same things we've been making. Like you were even talking about just getting the iPhone there. Like we don't need all the iPhones that we have, but it's like it's in our DNA to just keep reiterating things and changing things. Like even when you think about stories, what does they say? There's only like 8 stories really in certain terms of templates, but there's incalculable amounts of stories. Even people just have stories in their own heads that they like to play around with without ever writing,
Oh yeah, for sure.
Yeah. You see that in big franchises and stuff like Game of Thrones, even one of the biggest. Like a lot of that was referencing just historical wars and things like that. It was all very referential for things that have already, stories that have already been told, things that have already occurred. So yeah, no, it's true. Very true.
Cool, yeah.
Speaking of Game of Thrones, are we taking bets on if George R. R. Martin will ever finish that?
We can do for Halloween. A spooky fright would be if he was to finish it now at this stage.
Like if he did finish it.
I think it's more likely that he doesn't.
Yeah.
And no, he probably won't. And to be fair to him, he, much like ourselves, probably loves creating. And he got hit with a big, massive wave of love and adoration once the show came out. And I think he just went, look at the amount of doors that have opened for me. There's so many things now that I can do that I wasn't able to do before. And he's doing video game stories. He's doing other spin-offs.
Even Elden Ring, didn't he? Just
he did it,
the lore of that.
Yeah.
Because it's not really a narrative game, right?
Yeah. He's just creating so I think no, he won't finish those books, which is a crying shame. Because it was a great story there, but he has gone on to gift us with a lot of other cool stuff. So yeah, it's interesting. Have you got any plans actually, Tim, for Halloween before we get into the stories? Or have you got anything on this year?
Oh, it's my anniversary, which wasn't on purpose.
That's right. Yeah,
we didn't do that on purpose. We were meant to get married on All Saints, but the person who married us was not available. Like heathens, we married outside the church. But whoever was going to marry us wasn't available at that time, and they were only available on Halloween, so we ended up doing it on Halloween in Hex Hollow. So we were like, why not go all the way and do it completely spooky? There was just you don't have to even have a witness in Pennsylvania, so it was just the person who performed the ceremony and Allison and myself.
Cool.
And in a lonely spot in Hex Hollow. But so we'll probably do something for she likes to give out candy and see the kids in the costumes in the neighborhood and stuff. We'll probably get dinner or something after that.
How's that looking for you over there? Because last year myself and Kara got like all of the sweets and stuff ready, and we had all the stuff ready for trick-or-treaters, and no one called.
Really?
No.
Yeah, and we're in a built-up street here.
Well, funnily enough, I'm only up the street from you, but we were busy enough.
Now, what I have heard is, and we didn't have this, was that I think one of the modern folklore things is if you don't have your front light on your porch, no one will call to your house.
Yeah. Oh,
that's actually not a law here, but it's kind of like a thing. Like if the light isn't on, don't bother people.
Leave it alone.
See, we didn't know that now.
Yeah. Oh no, well, we had the place lit up. There was ghouls hanging out of the side of the house and everything. So I'll take all that down this weekend to get it ready. And then I dressed up as Blanca and put on the Grinch face paint. So kids were answering the door and they're like, "Whoa!" which is really fun. There was one, it was so cute, man. There was one little kid. He couldn't have been older than 3 years old. He was tiny, and his mum was at the end of the drive.
Yeah.
So I answered the door. You just have the knock. So I didn't know who was on the other end. I just opened the door, and I'm there dressed like a 6'2" green sort of ogre. And the little tiny, he was so small, he was just so tiny. And he looked up at me and he just went, "What are you doing?" And I gave him loads of sweets because he was just hilarious, and his mom was kind of giggling in the background. But yeah, we got loads of people. Some of the kids that were little that probably missed it, maybe because of COVID stuff. And they're catching up. So there's kids that were maybe just too old, but they were super well behaved kids, really nice. I remember we were little assholes when we were kids.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. Oh man, yeah. But these kids were really nice, and they were they got me really good. They're like, "Oh, are you meant to be that green guy out of Street Fighter?" And I was like, "Oh yeah, totally." These kids are maybe 11 or 12. And then one of them goes, "Yeah, my dad likes that game." I was like, "Okay, yeah, all right. See you guys later." That's enough sweets.
Yeah, we always get a group or two of it's high school kids basically.
Yeah.
He's like, "All right." And I was like, so some of them, if they really try, they have a costume, fine. And then some of them just show up in whatever street clothes and wear. It's you got to come up with a costume. Tell me who you are. At least make something up, and I'll give you some candy. And I've had some good ones. Some kids come up with some pretty funny stuff. It's what are you supposed to be? And they'll come up with. So I can't think of anything off the top of my head, but they've definitely made me laugh before.
No, that's pretty good.
You made me laugh. You get candy.
It's cool. It's a kind of I know you Americans call it fall over there, and I assume it's because the leaves fall off the trees. But are you at that point now? In the last week or two now, all the leaves are truly coming off the trees.
All the leaves are brown and the sky is grey.
Even with I noticed even with climate change.
Yeah.
Although it has cooled off a lot here now. but even when it doesn't, the native trees know, and I think they judge fall by the change in the length of the days.
Right.
So
Yeah.
the native trees will start even not so much, but it still takes some cold to get them really. But they'll start even before it gets really cold, and then the non-native trees are like, "What's going on?"
You know, you're right on that one actually, because I have some non-native trees out in the back, and they haven't started at all. Like they're kind of all over the place. They still think they're on holidays or whatever. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
But
yeah.
the natives are kind of getting ready properly. Do you know?
Yeah, I got one like that. It's kind of really nice to see as well. It's going that deep red, and parts of the tree are sort of the lighter, and there's even bits that are twinged with green. But it's just the one tree, but it's like a lovely little sort of index of where things are going.
Yeah, it's cool, man. It's cool.
So
So
I told
yeah.
this story on Strange Familiars last week, but I'll do an abbreviated version. I don't know if I told the last part of it, which is Halloween adjacent, if not directly related. I saw a UFO. I walk
Oh,
at night, often by myself, and I saw a UFO. It was a white globe. It was
Oh.
bigger than a shooting star, and it didn't have a tail on it like a shooting star does, but it did move in a straight line, kind of down through the sky. I don't believe it was a shooting star. It unlike any shooting star I've ever seen.
Mm-hmm.
So it was really neat. And I was very excited about it, and I was leaving a voice message to my friend Tara at the time about something unrelated. And while it happened so real time, I go, "Oh, Tara, I saw a UFO," and I'm describing it real time, and I'm all
Cool.
excited and so forth. And I go to hit send on the voice message, and it disappears.
Oh.
no way.
And it was one of I had probably 10 voice messages I left her. I had two previous to that, and probably however many 4, 5, 6 after that, whatever it was. But that's the only one that it did, and it was on Instagram. And if you do a voice message on Instagram on your phone, the send button's on one side. The if you don't want to send it, the trash can or whatever is on the other side. There's no way I hit the wrong. What I mean? It's not like I hit the wrong button. I hit send and it just went poof, disappeared. So that was interesting.
Wow.
And then walked around a bit, and I had weird knocks that seemed to follow me for about 5 minutes. Like as I walked through these
Interesting.
alleys, I would hear these little knocks on fences and stuff. Very strange.
How
And
how
then
far away would the UFO have been?
it's so hard to tell.
Right.
Yeah, it depends how big it was. It was just a
Yeah,
black
yeah.
sky and this white globe in it. So I really can't make a guess.
I
But
need to get out more at nighttime. That's one thing I do lack is like I'm not usually out for a stroll at night. And it's funny because I'm a night owl, but I never think to go. I must start because I said now if you're out watching the all night sky,
Yeah.
those spooky things.
Every
could
time
be-
I drive home from your house, I take a shortcut through like one of the industrial estates,
Yeah.
and there's barely anyone there. And every night I have this thought that like a saucer is just going to abduct me, and I don't want it to happen. I'm like, no, I don't, because we talk about all this stuff on the podcast, and it seems like the perfect place to sort
It
of
will
go
be.
missing. You know what I mean? But yeah, no, I think it's really interesting. Yeah, I've been listening a lot to a lot of all the UAP stuff and various
yeah.
podcasts about it, and
Well,
yeah.
so Chad, my buddy Chad, that next morning on his way to work, he saw a strange UFO. But anyway, on the rest of my walk, so I end up I walk to a place that's like an all-night place. I can get a cup of coffee, decaf. That's how I reward myself for I walk about 7 miles or so.
Oh, good. Yeah. Wow. That's a fair walk. Yeah.
I reward myself with when it's cold, I'll get a nice cup of decaf. And I'm old now, guys. I can't handle caffeine anymore.
Yeah. I'm like that. I'm like that too. And I'm a good bit younger than you, but I can't
Yeah,
handle it.
I like to ride the line between having a panic attack and being full of adrenaline, so I drink way too much coffee.
So get my coffee and I'm walking home and it's just me on the street. At this point it's probably almost 1 a.m, something like that. So there's no one out, and I like walking at lonely like that. It's
Yeah,
nice.
yeah.
And I hear this weird sounds like children's laughter or something in the distance.
Ooh.
And I'm like, what is that? That is eerie, and it was real eerie sounding. I'm like, oh my gosh, what is this? I'm like, after the UFO and the knocks and everything, I'm like, whoa, what? And I get a little closer, and I'm like, wow, that is really creepy sounding. So I walk about 3 blocks, and I finally get to it, and the wind was blowing pretty well that night. And these people had this Halloween witch hanging out in front of their house, and every time a branch from the tree would go in front of it, it would trigger it would start cackling every time. So I was hearing this witch, this Halloween decoration cackle from streets and streets away. I was like, it sounded so eerie though, but I was like, Halloween.
And you know what though? It's funny because like I actually like stories like that, and I like stories when it comes down to cryptozoology stuff as well, where it ends up being something really explainable because it in some way adds what would it be, veracity to the claims or something. Because a lot of the time when people hear someone's report, you're like, they could be making it up, whatever. And then you read a story where maybe there's a cluster of people who have sightings of something, and you're like, are these people just making up? But then you actually get, oh no, it was this thing, and here we found it. So those kind of incidents I find always lend weight to like people reporting stuff that they see. So I always try and keep that in mind as well, because sometimes I'm a bit cynical with stories with cryptid stuff. And I'm like, someone just making it up for clout. Do they want to be on a pod? Whatever. But like a lot of the time when people say they see what they see or they hear what they hear, they are hearing or seeing what they're saying. Do you know what I mean?
You got to be careful, Tim, because that's the precursor to the jump scare in a movie. Like it's like, the laughing was just the trigger, but then like the camera pans right and there's an actual witch or something that jumps out,
Exactly. Like one night I was walking and I thought I saw like a 10-foot tall shadow person, and it walked up. It was really strange, and it walked up behind these sort of apartment buildings that are on this one of the streets I walk on. And I was really fascinated with it. I was like, that is really unusual. I don't know how that could happen. And then as I walked further, I saw there was a guy on the sidewalk, and I was like, could that have been his shadow? And like, there's no way, because it literally looked like it walked away from him and behind this apartment building. And all night I was kind of thinking about it. And I'm like, man, I think I saw a shadow person. I think it's really weird. And the last thing I did before I went home was like, you know what? I'm going to walk right by that building, right where that guy did. And I did it. And it's just the way there was weird lights, like street lights and people's lights from the houses just coming in all directions. And it was enough. When I walked by, my shadow did the same thing.
Right.
Like, that's all it was. But it, like, for a long time, I was like, actually, I saw a shadow person. But that's all it was. It was just different lights. It was a weird trick of light and shadow. That's all it was.
Yeah, sometimes it can be really like convincing as well. Sometimes you can see or feel something and you're like, what?
Are you ever like kind of, because I find sometimes I see something and it takes your brain just a millisecond to figure out what it is. But it's like you don't get that adrenaline response. Like if you saw an actual cryptid, wouldn't you be like, oh God, whatever. But sometimes you see something that you think looks like something bizarre until your brain kind of recalibrates. And there's a part of me that kind of half believes that when you see something like that, the thing is as you've seen it, and it just like quickly transmogrifies itself to like be a thing. It's like, oh no, that's fine. Don't freak out.
That's how your eyes see it in an instance.
One of my favorite Bigfoot stories from Where the Footprints End that we collected is I think it was a young kid who was out. He was hunting. He was looking through a scope, and he was watching a Bigfoot through a scope. And it's kind of just like making its way slowly down this hill. And then he sees these two hunters kind of head down the same hill. And he watches the Bigfoot, in his words, turn into a tree. And these two hunters walk by, and he said he could see one of them looked over at it and jumped as if he saw something like freaky, and then sort of settled down, like almost like what you're saying, Eamon. Like he jumped, he like saw something, and then he was, oh no, it's just a tree, Yeah.
I'm pretty convinced that is just happening all around us all the time. Like all the, major physicists, even back as far as Plato, who obviously wasn't a physicist, but he was a philosopher and a thinker or whatever. It's all about what we see of reality isn't actually reality, if we could see nature for how it truly is. So, but then like there's times when I'm at home alone and I see something in the corner of the room, and I just quickly remind myself, no, reality is just normal. Don't worry about it. Everything's fine. But yeah, no, I do think there's constantly things around us that are morphing and moving and shaping.
Yeah. The world is alive with strange things.
Absolutely. It would be a good time for them to step into the light now, because everything else is so strange and bizarre. It's a great time for us to accept them.
Yeah, exactly. Like maybe we could. I don't know. I don't know. Things are weird. Things are
Yeah.
weird.
How is it over there for you guys at the moment?
It's odd, man.
Yeah.
It's just an odd. You know what? It reminds me of the pandemic, and
Mm.
during the pandemic, people got like edgy and like everybody was on edge, and it didn't bring out the best in some people. You know,
Yeah.
I think people were easily angered. Some people, and it feels like that again. It really feels like that. Just people are just easily angered. I think I refuse to talk politics on the show. I think it's pointless. But I think that, people being divided is not a good thing,
Yeah.
Yeah. No, it never really tends to work in the end, does it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's tense. We'll put it that
Yeah.
way. It's
Yeah.
tense.
Well, look, hopefully it will all sort itself out over time. I think sometimes we need things like this to happen for like for the long term, if that makes sense. In the
Yeah.
moment, it's scary and it's weird, but maybe in the long term, it leads to something better.
Yeah. Yeah. I have general faith in humanity
Yeah.
and in the general goodness of people and to be able to find common ground with our neighbors,
Mm.
whatever sign they put out for whatever political office. I
For sure.
refuse to hate my neighbor because they put out
Yeah.
a sign for a politician I don't like. I absolutely refuse to do that. So I have confidence that when we get to know each other and we talk and we share stories and we share our lives with people, they will soften and things will be okay. We just need to have that conversation again, and just people need to sit down and talk to each other.
Mm-hmm.
For sure.
Absolutely.
Yeah, for sure.
All right, now you got all deep. Now, now what are we gonna do? I'm gonna hit these Halloween stories.
All
Yeah,
right.
let's hit them, man. Yeah, we got some good ones. Yeah.
There's some interesting stories. Yeah, it was last minute, and I forgot to say it on the show. We had talked about it. I don't know how long ago, and I said, "Oh yeah, well I'll announce it on the show and ask for stories." And I forgot to, and then I put it up on Patreon, so I got some stories that way.
Yeah.
But I think we would have probably gotten more if I'd announced on the show. So
Yeah,
for next
same,
year,
same. Yeah, kind of got away from us this year, actually. Halloween's a couple of things on. I said on my podcast as well, on our podcast, we kind of talked about it, that it's just a busy time for me now this year in particular. Usually with Halloween, we'd be pushing the boat out a lot more, but it's kind of jumped up on us this year.
oh for sure, yeah,
Mm-hmm.
yeah. With the move to Spectre Vision and everything else, it's just a busy time for me as well. So. First one comes from Kevin, and I just said, send any Halloween story. If it doesn't have to be paranormal, it can be funny, it can just be a sweet story, whatever you have. Just we're just looking for Halloween stories in general. So Kevin said, every year the local Boy Scout camp hosts a haunted hayride event in southeast Wisconsin. Our troop will be part of the show, scaring folks on hay wagons as they passed. The boys mostly stick together. I like to go off a bit to get a good jump scare. Last year, my son had been following me and chatting as we scared. I didn't think much of it when I heard him say, Dad, except I turned around and he wasn't there. I could clearly see him 50 yards away goofing off. This happened several times throughout the night, being very distinct and in my son's voice every time. The camp has no credible reports of haunting, just some fabricated camp tales. However, on this night, and every year we scare, we bring large speakers and I blast Wilderness Geist Pandemonium. That's one of my albums of dark ambient music. All night. It might have stirred something up. Well, I would like to believe that. I would.
Yeah.
Auditory hallucinations or something. Actually, I'll be honest with you, they're not something that we've really looked into in great depth or even like explored. It's always like, I don't know about you, Tim. I suppose you do talk about things like knockings and stuff like that a bit. But like for us, it's generally what you can see or can't see a lot of the time is what we'd be talking about. But that I went through a period like probably when I was about 30, so you're talking about 7 years ago now, of like hearing stuff that's like it almost sounded like someone was saying something to you, but they weren't. Do you ever get that? Where
Just catching the wind wrong in your
yeah,
ear.
it's like a weird kind of thing, yeah. And I kind of wonder sometimes, is it kind of like this?
Is it a fairly universal experience when you're a kid to like, at least a few times throughout your childhood, like for sure hear your mom or your dad call you,
Yeah,
Yeah.
and they're like, "Nah, I didn't call you." I mean, I feel like that's fairly universal, right?
For sure. I think some of the scariest stories I've heard. I think when you were off somewhere, maybe it was when you were in Japan the year before last, Rob. It was like I did a thing on mimic entities, and it was about people who they're just about to come inside or they're in the sitting room and they hear their mum saying, "Oh, come here," into the one of the rooms in the house. And as they're walking down to the room, the front door opens and it's their mum. And it's this sort of thing, like, was there an entity in there planning something nefarious? But those stories really freak me out.
Yeah.
I think they have a name for that in the Nordic countries, and I'm probably going to pronounce it. It's like Vordoger or something like that. There's a name. They actually literally have a name for that. For some, basically, it's like a spirit or the spirit of that person maybe coming home right before they're supposed to.
Yeah. Oh, so you're right. So it's almost like a time, space-time thing, is it?
Yeah.
Ah, I get you. Yeah, because I always thought of it the more, like a mimic entity or a demonic kind of a thing.
Right.
Because I know there's someone that I'd be close to, and they had an experience where when their grandfather would have passed away, they used the Ouija board to communicate with him for a while. This is kind of it's separate but somewhat similar. But they would use the Ouija board to communicate with him for a while, and it was all they knew, they assumed it was their grandfather, and he knew everything about them that he would have known when they were alive. And then he just started saying really mean, nasty, horrible things. And it's that thing about, it's almost like the collective consciousness of the other realm, if you like. They know all these things. And so you can't tell if it's like a malignant entity that's coming through. And in most cases, it seems like that is what's happening to a lot of these people who make contact.
I get contacted with people all the time. It's like, I won't even have a Ouija board in my house. The board is the board's the board. There's no problem with the board. It's what's on the other side of the board that you don't know. And there are lots of things out there willing to pretend to be whatever you want. And I think that's the problem with with ghosts. People are so ready to believe, like, that's the ghost. It's like, oh yeah, but I mean, I've collected a lot of ghost stories that claim to be things from history that just weren't. And I just think there's a lot of spirits that are willing to. They want attention. They want whatever interchange with humans, whatever they want. However you want to put it. And I think there's a lot of things out there that are willing to pretend to be whatever you want them to be.
That's a good question for you, actually, Tim. Have you ever used a Ouija board? I don't think we've had this conversation.
Sure. Yeah.
Yeah. How did you find your experience with it?
I've had a few times that were nonsense. It's not something I do anymore. This is when I was young. But one time I remember, it was early on in. No, I think Alison and I had been together for a while, but we were playing Ouija with my friend Sarada, who sings for Stone Breath. And Alison asked a question about her mother. I think it was her mother's middle name, which I didn't know, at least not in the front of my brain, right? Maybe sometime I had heard that in the past, and subconsciously I was able to pull that out, but it spelled it out. The board spelled it out. So now, was that my subconscious? It could be. It absolutely could have been. I don't know. But I remember Alison being like, whoa. And Alison has a really interesting Ouija board story. I wish she was here. They were with some friends, and it spelled out "Dad dead" and gave a date.
Oh.
And one of the girls she was using the board with, their father died on that day.
Oh, wow. Yeah. I have one as well from a friend of mine who I trust quite a lot, and he's the type of lad, like, there's no shit with him, like, you know what I mean? He tells it as it is. But he said when he was a teenager, like, they all got together with a Ouija board, and there's probably like 3 boys, 3 girls, they're all kind of sitting around. And the girl was doing it, and like while she was in the middle of doing it, like she just passed out face down onto the Ouija board. It's like totally spooky stuff, and you're going like, what is going on there? Is there some kind of force? Now you could always make the argument, she was freaked out a bit or whatever, and she just was overcome. But still, just the fact,
terrifying for everyone else, because it's like something out of the Evil Dead. She just comes back as the demon or something,
Right.
I mean, it's
walks down, passes out, wakes up, comes back up with red eyes.
Yeah.
Well,
My dad has a And my dad's pretty skeptical. Like he doesn't. My dad's like Scully from X-Files. Like the alien could be tapping him on the shoulder and he'd be like, "There's no such thing as aliens. This is ridiculous." But he's had all these weird experiences. He had one when he was in college. Him and his friend like shared a place together for the first few months, and they were playing the Ouija board. I guess this would have been about, around the time The Exorcist was coming out and people were, curious about all that sort of stuff. But they were doing it with a wine glass, I think, on a piece of paper. And the way my dad tells it is that they're doing this in the wine. They both have their finger on the wine glass. The wine glass shot out and hit the corner of the room where the ceiling meets the wall, and then fell down to the floor. But the wine glass didn't break.
Oh Lord!
And they both just moved out of the wherever they were living.
Wow,
it's a spooky one. Yeah, I did one. I remember I did it when I was a kid as well, and it told me I was gonna die like August 28th or something. But like,
oh jeez.
Like 26 August 28th have passed since then. And the only thing that got me was I was with my cousin and her cousin, who wasn't like my cousin, but on the other side of her family. And she had like really long nails. We're all like teenagers, but she only had her nail resting on, it was a pound coin. So before the euro, so a punt. So it was silver, like, so she had her nail on it and I had my finger on it. And I could see like, if she was putting pressure with her nail, I would have assumed there would have been like, do you know when you put pressure with your finger, your sort of finger goes a little bit at the point?
Yeah, of course.
But she didn't seem to be, and I wasn't. I know they call it idiomotor if like your subconscious is doing this stuff. But it was an interesting thing.
Even if it is your subconscious, as like that's a way of explaining it. But even if it is your subconscious, why is your subconscious doing it then?
Well, my history teacher had a good thing about this that he said to us. He was pretty religious, and he was pretty cool in that he would talk about various things. You probably know what I'm talking about. And I remember he said to us one day, he said, "Lads, you can do the Ouija board." He's like, hardly, no one's going to possess the pound, and no one's going to possess the board, and no one's going to possess the, whatever you have. And he just goes, which means the thing that's possessing something is using part of you to move you. So the part that's being possessed is inside you. And
hey, I'm going to have Alison step in and tell her Ouija board stories because I don't think I told it right, so she can tell.
Oh, excellent.
I feel like this is going to be way less exciting now.
Oh, it's so exciting to see Alison though.
We thought we were getting a no Alison episode, but you're running down the ramp like a WWE wrestler now with a story for us.
It's Alison with a steel chair.
Now there's a lot of pressure, but I feel like I've told this story before. So
I've told it on Strange Familiar. But
okay. So
Robin and Eamon haven't heard it.
So when I was in high school, because that is like the only time fun things happen with Ouija boards. Like I've never heard of anybody like in their 30s or 40s or 50s sitting around with their friends going, "Let's get the Ouija board out."
Yeah, for sure.
So we were like teenagers, and a group of my friends, and I wasn't invited to this portion of the story, but they had a night where they were using the Ouija board, and they were so excited and freaked out about it that they told me like the next day when they got back to school, like, so the Ouija board said, "Dad, die," and it gave a date, and so we were all like, it didn't specify whose dad would die or anything like that, and then the date came and went, and I was about to say something the next day, like after the date had passed, then it was something dad was supposed to die. I was going to mention that, oh, nobody's dad died. And then someone else within our friend group, their father actually did die on that date. And it was like non-specific when they had done it, but they had assumed it was this one girl who didn't really like her dad. And I think maybe that's where the genesis of it was, but then it really was. It did turn into a death on the date that they stated. And because I wasn't there, but they had told me about it and told me the date, like it wasn't something that somebody faked or made up. Like there was, they did actually have a Ouija board session that said that someone's dad was going to die on a specific date. And then someone's dad within our friend group did die on that date, which I found it very, very creepy and unnerving.
Yeah. And even if they even if they had just made up the story, the
Yeah,
probability of that coming through, you know what I mean? It's oh my God, that's creepy. It also freaks you out because it's like, well, is there some sort of predestination running in the background and we actually have way less free will than we think?
yeah, yeah, or like it did somehow that I mean because the person that passed away it was a self-inflicted thing. So I wonder like, was it in the air? Had he heard his
True.
daughter telling the story or something?
God.
Like I don't think it was anything conscious. I don't think he did it
No.
on that date because of that, not by a long shot, but like, I think things sort of like maybe hang in the ether where you're picking things up maybe when they're Oh, that sounds really
Yeah.
strange, familiar. I don't know if I really believe that.
I
Yeah, it's funny because this is your story and you're like usually pretty skeptical. So
Yeah,
it's
yeah. That's like, but I guess when it happens to you, then you're like, well, maybe for this one instance,
yeah, just this one time.
no, this
Everyone
is
else is
tricky.
crazy.
what else is crazy? But for the one time that this thing happened to me and where I could have a relatable story, I think like maybe it did happen. So that's
There's
my
a
story.
couple.
I'll let you
Yeah.
guys go back, and I will go back to making some chili.
Yeah, get out.
Yeah, save some
good
Philly
to-
for us
good
as
to
well,
do, yeah.
Alison, please.
Get out of here, woman. Vardoger is a Scandinavian folklore concept of a spirit precursor that takes the form of a person's footsteps, voice, or appearance, preceding their physical arrival and causing witnesses to believe they have seen or heard the actual person, creating a kind of deja vu in reverse. More than a simple doppelganger, a Vardoger is seen as a harbinger or a messenger, an echo of a person's soul and a confirmation of their destiny.
Okay. Yeah.
It is a
it's-
thing. I almost had the name right, not quite.
It was
I
like we
probably
talked
forgot.
about last week. The Body Snatchers has a scene like that, and that's I think them kind of movies is what kind of that aspect is what makes them so creepy. Is that people can mimic the ones that you love and all that, and they can assimilate with the voice and the appearance and all that. And I think the Body Snatchers is why it's a great film actually because of that. It's just so creepy. I'm sure you've watched that film, Tim. Yeah,
Yeah, yeah.
yeah, it's great flick.
Oh, yeah. All right, so next we have got it's a Patreon comment, but it's relative to Halloween. When do you guys want to take that?
Yeah, sure, I'll take that. It's from Alison, and she says, I don't have a Halloween story, but as a kid, I was really scared of Halloween. I remember just hoping I'd get through the night without seeing a ghost or a witch. No trick or treat in Lancashire when I was a kid. We would bob for apples. Is this a custom in the US?
It is indeed, and I'm assuming it is there as well.
Yeah.
I think I only ever did it once.
Did you? Yeah, no, we did.
Here on Halloween, yeah, just once.
So
Yeah, I think for me it was just once as well. But
Yeah.
if,
No, I think Ireland is in a weird place, and we've perhaps touched on this before on one of our yearly collabs for Halloween, where obviously, Samhain has a lot of ties with Halloween and all that kind of stuff, and we've done episodes at length about that ourselves and that. But I think a lot of what is modern Halloween in Ireland is directly American influenced.
Yeah.
And we would have gotten it from TV shows and movies at the times. Because I think like if you go back to say my dad or my mom's generation, and probably yours were the same, like their Halloween would have looked a lot different.
It's very DIY as
Yeah,
well.
like whereas ours was very what I would say is kind of almost Americanized. So I think a lot of the time people were actually mimicking what was on TV at the time and stuff like that, But and even nowadays, like it's gone so much more commercial over here. Like it's like you were talking about earlier about having decorations out the front of the house and stuff like that really wasn't the thing when we were kids. Like,
Nobody used to do that
No.
when we were kids. But now I love like wandering around my street and just seeing the
Yeah, it's
various
great.
gardens where the skeletons are coming up through the earth and stuff. Like it's really fun to see now. But yeah, when we were kids, no one really had that.
So it was very traditional. Like it would have looked a lot like probably Tim yours when you were a kid. Maybe it was we did we did have a couple of parties. I only really recall maybe one or two, like we're saying, maybe. And I Bob Frapple's one or two times, and I don't know whether it's a custom over there. It's quite gross when you think about it, but like we used to have apples with like pound coins put in.
Yeah.
And you'd bob and you try and bite the pound coin out of the apple.
oh wow,
Yeah.
And there'd be like chocolate apples and stuff like that too. But the bobbin of apples, yeah, it was some of the apples might have money in them.
Yeah. No, that's what we used to do. There's money in
Gross.
the apples, and then you get your money out, and then you had a fistful of shrapnel, and then you go down and you buy like whatever sweets in the
Yeah.
shop. But I think I only did that one time. And after that, it was just around the street.
Yeah.
I guess I was young. I was with some neighbors who used to live in, there's a field behind my house when I was a kid, which is now like a development or whatever. But yeah, I remember that was the only time I ever did the Bob for apples, and I bought a ton of chewing gum or something
Nice.
in the shop.
Money well spent.
Yeah, absolutely, yeah.
I think I asked this last year of you guys, have the like 9 foot plastic skeletons made their way there yet?
There, I think you can get them, but you generally you've got like the 5'10" plastic skeletons, or the you don't see a lot of the big, huge ones.
I find them interesting because, and a friend of mine said this, but I was like, oh yeah, you're kind of right. When you look at the skeleton and you think of Bigfoot sightings, you're like, it gives you a good idea of how big Bigfoot
Ah.
Yeah.
would be. Like when you look at these giant skeletons, like, oh wow, it would be that big. It's quite large.
It's when you think about that as well, because like a terrifying thing for me always has been just the idea of something really oppressive due to its height. Because I mean, me and Rob were like we're both over 6 feet tall, so it's you're generally one of the taller people in a room or whatever. You don't think about people being taller than you, but then to have something that's like 3 feet above you, like, and I've heard some stories about like 15-foot white Bigfoots and stuff like that. And just if you think about that for a second, like twice my height and some change, that must be terrifying.
What's the name of that Bigfoot sighting that we watched?
Oh, the Marble Mountain.
Marble Mountain.
Yeah.
Have you seen Marble Mountain, Tim?
Yeah,
Yeah, that kind of looks like.
yeah. It would be massive, right?
Yeah.
And isn't there something, and a skeleton is a good way to put it as well, because like skeletons by their nature are lanky because they have no meat on the bone. And if you see, and that Marble Mountain Bigfoot looks kind of lanky, long arms, they look kind of thin, and that to me feels creepier than your big bench pressing Bigfoot that people are always seeing with his muscles and stuff.
Oh yeah, no. What do you think of the Marble Mountain Bigfoot, Tim? What's your stance on it?
It's been years. I know I've seen
Yeah.
it. It's from a distance, right?
Yeah, it's
yeah,
like
yeah.
it's a parent with some scouts, right? And I think one of his kids or a couple of his kids might be part of the scout troop. And there's a couple of parts of video where they're hiking, they have a little scout camp set up, and then there's the footage then of like them spotting something up on the hill.
They're kind of zooming in at
Yeah.
the
Yeah.
VHS type
Yeah.
stuff,
It's been some years since I looked at it. I remember it being very interesting, beyond that.
Same, yeah.
You're never going to get me to weigh in on video stuff too heavy. I'll always go, oh, that's interesting.
Yeah,
Yeah,
no, like
yeah,
it does.
for
Like
sure.
to be fair, like I never really found anything against it really too strong. I think even the nature of how that video was found was quite interesting. It was found like kind of long after the fact. I don't think it was intentionally put out as a Bigfoot sighting. Even maybe I might be wrong on that. And it's one of those videos where a lot of people have kind of brushed it off and have said, oh, that was just a guy and it was just a weird way that he looked on the VHS, kind of came through kind of weird. There's artifacts around him or something like that. But to me, it looks super convincing, actually. It was one of the most compelling sort of videos I've seen of Bigfoot, probably.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Speaking
Super.
of tall people, Eamon, so I'm 6 foot now. The world has beat me down. I used to be 6'1". I'm about 6 foot now, and during college, I was quite a big fella. I had quite a lot of weight on that frame, and I went to a party one time, just friend of a friend kind of thing, invited me there, and there was this dude there who was massive. I mean, he looked like a giant Viking, just big long red beard and just mass. I remember he was wearing overalls. I don't think he had a shirt on under the overalls. So it's just this giant of a man. And I'm thinking he must have been close to 7 feet. I mean, he's a great big guy. And for some reason, he took a liking to me, and we were kind of drinking together all night. And we just hit it off. And I never saw him after this either. I wonder where he went, where he got up to. 'Cause we really did get along well that night. We kind of spent the whole night together, just joking and having drinks and stuff. And at the end of the night, I was leaving, and he picked me up. I mean, at the time, I was well over 250.
Wow.
Yeah, he picked me up and hugged me I had never been like since I was a child. I hadn't been
Yeah.
picked up. It was this odd feeling. I remember thinking like, what the heck is this? Like suddenly there's no ground beneath me, and this person is like just holding me in the air, and I was like, wow, like what is this, And you think about Bigfoot, like they could toss us through goalposts,
Oh.
like at their
Bigfoot
size.
Simulator, that was right there. She should go to carnivals and start charging for Bigfoot Simulator. He can dress
Right?
up in a Sasquatch suit and start throwing you around the place, you know what I mean?
Yeah, yeah.
That does
This
sound
fellow
like a business plan, actually. Yeah, it's not bad.
Mm.
Eamon, I think you're going to get the longest one here. That
Yeah,
wasn't planned.
from Mary. Okay. I'm not 100% sure that this happened on Halloween. My memories of the college years are few, and my sense of chronology is challenged at best thanks to alcohol and ADHD, retrospectively. I'm there with your sister.
Yeah.
I appreciate you.
Brothers in
Uh,
hilarity.
but I think it did. I went to school at St. Mary's College, which is located in the same area as the first Catholic settlement in Maryland. Most of my spooky experiences there happened in the dreamscape. But we did have one incident that had all of us hightail it from the graveyard to the dorms. When I was a student at St. Mary's, 1983 to 1987, there was a strong drinking culture, and pretty much every day there was a reason for drinking, much like
Is there never not a
today.
reason?
Yeah, it's just Tuesday. Okay.
Oh, it ends in Y. Okay.
On this fall night, a group of us decided to go down to Church Point and maybe go swimming in the river. Swimming in the St. Mary's River at night when it truly was too cold to be a good idea and the participants were too drunk for it to be a safe decision was a relatively common thing. Yeah, you're definitely singing my hymns here, lady. On the walk from the dorm to the point, we took the shortcut through the graveyard and shared spooky stories, rumors, and urban legends. One of the rumors was that a group of professors was involved in a cult that would meet by the large cross at Church Point and dance around a bonfire. None of us believed that one, and we laughed it off when whoosh, it felt like someone ran right past us. I looked up and saw what looked like a shadowy figure in a dark cloak peeking out from behind a gravestone. I pivoted on my heel and took off running in the opposite direction. As I ran out of the graveyard and my feet hit the road, I looked over my shoulder and saw my friends running to meet me. My friend Vicky called out, "Did you see it? Did you see it too?" We slowed our pace to a quick walk and shared notes. Vicky also saw something in what she described as a brown monk's robe. Steve felt the rush of movement but didn't see anything, and Roddy didn't see, feel, or hear anything. She just took off running when we did because that's what friends do. Was it an apparition, a cult member, someone in costume heading to a kegger at Church Point that we didn't know about? Who knows? Well, we know it wasn't a cult member because that was just a silly rumor. Whatever it was scary enough that we all chose to exit the area in the fastest way possible. The things that were particularly particular and spooky at the college, particularly peculiar, and spooky at the college were the number of shared nightmares that people would have. And no, I'm not talking about your typical school-related nightmares, but those didn't happen on Halloween, so they are for another day.
Oh, I wish we could know where they were now. That's
Yeah,
a cliffhanger, a
absolutely.
little bit of a cliffhanger. That's interesting. I don't know. What's your call? Dude in a costume?
I mean, if we take all the sort of supernatural bits out of it, you would go, oh yeah, maybe dude in a costume, or maybe, I don't know. Like I don't think you could have like a group hallucination of two, right? But
Right. I mean, I guess, so the one thing ran past, right? Is that the,
Yeah. Yep.
and then was it a different thing that was looking from behind the tombstone, or was it the same thing? I was
Yeah.
unclear on that.
that's a good question.
It sounds like it's the same thing, I think.
Well, even,
Or maybe not.
I guess there's a few different reads on it. Like you can have the one sort of skeptical where you think, oh, people just, they were talking about spooky things. They
It
creeped
is
each other out.
Halloween.
Yeah, it's Halloween. You're sort of naturally a bit more, your hair is a bit more bristly than usual. But then I guess the other side is, could they have manifested this little experience by that energy and that fear of talking about something?
Sure.
And then maybe another one is just there was some substance maybe behind the rumors, even if they weren't actively doing this kind of cult stuff, that actually there's some sort of memory in the area, some sort of
It's
liminal thing that's
interesting
happening.
how often you get in ghost stories in the United States, and I think this might be particular to the United States. You'll get these areas that in the 1980s they would say cults met there,
Mm.
and then if you go back to the 1950s, they would say the KKK met there.
Mm.
Mm.
And then if you go back before that, they would often say like a lynching or something like that happened there.
Yeah.
So you still get that weird, element to it. But it's like it's almost like whatever the culture is either ashamed of or afraid of at that time gets associated with these certain places and it changes over time. It's very interesting. So,
Yeah.
I wonder what it's going to be like. It almost seems like we're sort of entering part two of the Satanic Panic in a way.
Yeah,
But
I feel that too. I definitely feel like we're getting back to that swing of things, all right, for sure.
yeah.
I think there's an uptick in people being more spiritual,
Mm.
which ultimately I suppose is a good thing.
Yeah.
Probably.
There's a lot
So
of, I mean,
that corrects itself. So when there's a lot of people spiritual, there can also be there's a lot of people. I think there's a lot more people leaning into religion. I think times are tougher, and I think people are feeling it's harder in
yeah.
these streets.
There's a lot
So I
of
think
talking heads, I think, as well, that are kind of, there's been some famous ones recently talking about spiritual attacks.
Hmm.
They'd be quite famous Hollywood broadcasters, or used to be Hollywood broadcasters, and are famous podcasters now. It's not Rogan or anything like that. I mean, I won't get into it because there's, like you said, Tim, there's political stuff behind it or whatever. It's maybe not the time or the place, but it does seem like we're primed for something like that. And it is interesting. You know what kind of comes to mind? I don't know if this will mean anything, but it's probably, I'm anticipating this Welcome to Derry TV show, the It prequel. Um, but isn't that every 27 years that Pennywise kind of comes back, or that it like this
Mm,
evil emerges again? And that was the
right.
first thing that kind of resonated with me as you were talking about the KKK and the lynchings and the satanic panic or sort of cult stuff.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, that's very interesting. I had a fellow on from Ireland, and maybe you guys, he was talking about a place outside of Dublin.
Mm.
Is there a sort of an abandoned place? Is it like where was it a Hellfire
Hellfire
Club built?
Club.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And he had some really interesting experiences there, but I wonder, is there that kind of reputation like associated with that building?
it is. Yeah, there
Mm.
is. Well, Hellfire Club has a history with the sort of the British and the sort of Protestant ruling class that were in
Mm,
Ireland at the time.
okay, yeah.
There's actually a load of stories about that are actually super interesting. But one of them was they used to use that place to purposely scare the locals, the local Catholic population, because they knew that the Catholics were more superstitious. So they used to use the Hellfire Club for these like mock sort of sacrifices and things like that, where
Wow.
they would purposely sort of like bring up dead animals, and they'd wear robes and they'd do all that kind of stuff up there on certain nights, and they'd light big fires and all this stuff. And it was like the whole the goal of it was to frighten the Catholic population, because they just knew that like we would have been more, yeah, very superstitious, very religious. And yeah, so there's actually great, I want to say there's a great Blind Boy episode about that, the Blind Boy podcast, and I don't know the name of it, but if you search maybe Blind Boy Hellfire, you might find it. And also, shameless plug for us, Eamon did a video special up in the
Oh, I
Hellfire
made a
Club.
documentary up there. We cycled,
Yeah,
me and
on our,
about cousins
on our
cycled up there.
Patreon, he cycled up in lockdown and
Yeah.
did a video up
Nice.
there.
Yeah, I don't think I talked about the history at all. It was like, oh, here we are now. Look, it's not scary. No, but I mean, back like they were meant to be a bunch of transgressives that were like to Rob's point as well. There was an element of sort of edge lord tricksterism about it, but
Yeah.
there was a satanic element where they were kind of a rejection, I think, of well, Protestantism or Catholicism, really, just the church in general. And yeah, there's like meant to be a lot of strange sort of, I don't know, I've read some stuff about weird sort of sex stuff, orgy stuff, like
Yeah.
just that kind of transgressive stuff. Because that was what the 19th century, I guess,
I think
or
so.
the early 20th.
And yeah, and as well, it can also be, it can be both things because it was probably before the Protestants occupied the spot. It was probably sort of a religious area. I'm not quite
Yeah,
sure
yeah,
of
yeah.
the history prior to that, like, because I only, that's the only story that's popping into my head about the Hellfire Club right now. But oftentimes, like, this would have been a pre-existing area that
It was
the
a Hunter's
Catholics,
Lodge, wasn't
the
it? And
Catholic
then,
revered for
yeah,
whatever reason,
yeah,
and then it turned into something different once the ruling class got
yeah.
their
And
hands on.
if you were ever to visit it, like it's a hike to get up there through the forest,
Mhm.
and it's usually quite busy because it's quite a touristy bit. It's got this beautiful vista of the whole city that when you actually get to the Hellfire Club on a clear day, you can just see straight out to the edge of the island, you know. But um, if you can imagine yourself there alone, it's certainly there's a very it has a we I think it would have a weird energy if you were in there by yourself. I've only been there in the day, and it's usually packed with tourists and stuff. And you know it's fun. You don't take it seriously, but I can't imagine camping there or something being quite
Yeah, there's lots of places like
in
liminal,
Ireland. Yeah,
but yeah, and America too. Even like, because it's sometimes people might ignorantly sort of look at America and only kind of assume like the history goes back as far as when people arrived, but obviously there's so much like
Oh yeah.
indigenous folklore and just so many things that would have went on. And as well, America has such a rich history after that too, where there was so many wars and battles held on land that like you'd almost forget about that happened in America, that were
it
like
is
not the
kind of
heavy hitter ones, you
yeah,
know?
but it is crazy that like you guys are just going towards your 250th birthday,
Mhm.
right? Isn't like since
Yeah.
the state was founded and everything.
Yeah.
Oh my God, you've packed a lot into those 250 years, you know?
Blockbuster 250 years.
You wonder if this energy of people like literally trying to scare people,
Yeah.
and it comes up a lot, and we've had it on the podcast. I remember we did a story about a guy who ran an iron furnace down in Maryland, and he would dress up as ghosts to scare his neighbors.
Mm-hmm.
But there's also all these like serious ghost stories associated with the place. The Spring Hill Jack stuff. There were a lot of
Yeah.
people that were just dressing up to scare other people, but there
Mm-hmm.
were also some really weird, like unexplained things with that. There's in my upcoming book, The Keystone Hagstone, Fairies and Other Liminal Entities in Pennsylvania.
Great title.
I do a whole chapter on these women in black sightings that were happening mostly in the coal region, but they came down to York and some other places. And some of them were certainly people dressing up, including men, just putting on black dresses to scare people or to rob them or to
Mhm.
assault women, up to no good, whatever it was. But there were some that were absolutely bizarre, where like this could not have been a human, where they're, people on horseback are trying to run her down, they can't catch her,
Right.
and they see it go into a mine and everybody goes in the mine and there's just nothing in there. They saw one of them, they saw just descend into a lake, like just walk out over a lake and just descend into the lake.
The
So you
White
get these,
Lady's the same, yeah. Have you heard the White Lady stories?
oh yeah,
Similar. There's
yeah,
one,
yeah.
there's a really famous one here that's tied in with a massive, like, with like an international kind of murder case that happened. There's a very good podcast about it called West
Cork.
Cork. And basically it was a French woman was murdered over here, but there is actually ties to like some locals had they seen like a white woman at the lake, a lady in white. And
Oh,
again,
she had seen her.
she had seen her actually,
She
yeah.
saw her, and it was like a harbinger of your own death. And then, sure enough, a couple of days later,
Yeah.
and she'd reported it. It's not too dissimilar to what Alison said in a lot of ways, actually. And so yeah, so she had said that to her friend, and then I think within a day or two, she had passed away.
And the place that she seen the woman, I think it was, had a really rich kind of folklore about that. There was actually
Yeah.
a story, wasn't it, about because there's a little castle up there.
Oh, I think we've done
yeah,
it on
we
that
did.
castle
We did a
before,
long
but
time ago.
yeah.
But I think it actually ties in like with the local folklore. So there's another example for you. I think sometimes people like lampoon the local folklore, and I think that's probably what you're seeing in some of these stories, especially like Spring Heel Jack and stuff. Like the Brits have a good sense of humor, so like there was probably an element of mocking and taking the piss out of people that they thought that it was a whole bunch of nothing and people were making up silly stories. So then some people dressed up to have the crack. But I think there's a bit of that.
Even the what is it, the drone sightings over New Jersey, was it?
Yeah.
And so many people were saying like, yeah, like there's definitely drones and big drones and this and that, but interspersed with all that is a lot of people reporting extremely strange sightings that seemed more akin to your, I don't know, the UAPs moving in very strange what am I trying to say? Geometrical. Thank you, Rob. Geometrical ways. And, so like, it's like what you're saying, Tim, in that like there's that weird part happening. And then there's the part that's easily explainable with technology or people, just trying to spook people out or whatever.
Yeah. It's like the phenomena loves muddy waters.
Yes. And there's a lot of stuff as well about like there's a lot of stuff about people. So they're in a haunted house, for example, and this is maybe more true in the past, although I'm sure it probably happens now. And these entities or whatever's happening in the space, it's creating havoc, it's doing X, Y, and Z. And the people, they'll get the media or whoever there, and they hoax it out of frustration of the thing not showing up when it's supposed to.
Yeah. Yeah. Absolutely. Happens all the time.
Yeah.
One of my favorite Marian apparition thing is the Garbandal in Spain, and people will use this to try to debunk everything. At one point, there were girls there they're seers. They were young girls. Like I think they were between like 11 and 14 or something like that. They were fairly young, and at one point, they faked it. Because crowds had started to come and they didn't want people to be disappointed. And the town priest could tell they were faking. And he pulled them aside and said, don't ever do that again. Don't do it. Don't fake it. I could tell you were faking. And so people use that, to sort of debunk the whole thing, which went on for 4 years. It's kind of hard to use one incident to debunk it, in my opinion. But I understand, and again, it's like this, they didn't want people to be disappointed,
Yeah, and it must be so frustrating as well to, you've been experiencing this thing that's very difficult to explain to people. And when you eventually get someone there to actually, to tell your truth, basically, which is, I'm sure it's quite a burden in a lot of ways. And then it just won't happen. And you feel justified in hoaxing something because that it's been real.
Yeah.
Right. I think it happens with Bigfoot guys.
Exactly. Yeah. I was just about to say.
Guys have really good evidence initially, and down the line they feel so much pressure to keep producing, and then they get into that state of mind where like, yeah, I faked it, but it's okay because I know it's real. Strange Familiars is brought to you by our patrons. Thank you, patrons. We could not make Strange Familiars without your help. If you like extra content and you want to help us make Strange Familiars and get extra shows besides, you can become a patron on Patreon. It's patreon.com/strangefamiliars. All of our patrons get commercial-free versions of the weekly shows, plus extra episodes. We do at least one full exclusive episode of Strange Familiars for our patrons every month. Sometimes we do more. This month we did 2. I just dropped 2 patron episodes for our patrons. I also did a live stream for our patrons. Our Patreon patrons, we can live stream via Patreon now. We did a live stream last Saturday. We plan on doing more of those in the future. It's another thing, another advantage of becoming a patron. For more information, go to patreon.com/strangefamiliars. Our Patreon patrons also get to participate in an ongoing paranormal experiment, which has kicked off. That's what the live stream was about. You got to hear us on site in the middle of that experiment. That's what we did. That was the live stream. So that's another advantage of being a Patreon patron. But you can be a patron via Apple Podcasts too. The program there is called Patron of the Strange. And our Apple Podcast subscribers get the commercial-free shows weekly as well as the bonus episodes monthly. Very soon we'll be activating memberships on YouTube. Now you can subscribe to the channel on YouTube. You just click that button to subscribe. That's free. Doesn't cost you a thing, and it does help us out. So even if you don't listen to the show on YouTube, please do that for us. But the YouTube memberships will activate soon, and those will get the extra episodes monthly as well. Thanks to all of our patrons, no matter where they support us.
Perhaps a controversial take, but I kind of do feel that way with Patterson Gimlin film a little bit, to be honest with you. I think that
I'm telling you, I over the years, I was always slightly on the fence, but leaning towards real. And over the years, I'm leaning the other way nowadays.
Yeah. No, like, look,
not a popular place to be in the Bigfoot world.
No, it's not. No, well, we both have high strangeness podcasts, and it's not a popular take, really, like, 'cause it is what it is. But I think you have to kind of look at things like pragmatically as well, and kind of observe it. And I think, to be honest, someone that, I think they wanted to get that Bigfoot film so much. And there was a history of Patterson as well, of, like, we've talked about it on our pod a million and one times, that he had sketched female Bigfoots before in books and stuff like that, and
with hair on their breast and doing the same look back as in that film.
Exactly, the very same. So it's like life imitates art a bit too much there. And
there's the guy who did the magic trick where he'd transform a woman into. And he said he was involved and blah blah blah. Yeah, it's But again, I think maybe, to be fair, none of us know 100%. Like, the only people who know are the guys that either saw that or hoaxed that. So I think maybe if you approach it that way and say, look, I don't know, but
it doesn't really change my views on anything much anyway. I mean, it's compelling footage, and it's caused so much discussion. But look, even if it was a hoax, it's brought so many people into this, and sparked so much sort of people, like, wanting to find out more. People are like, check out podcasts like ours and yours, Tim, and ultimately it's for the good. But I do think personally that there was an element of that with that footage. I think that Patterson had kind of devoted his life to being the guy that finds Bigfoot, and I think it was by any means necessary. And that's just my personal thing.
I've been given behind the scenes information from two separate sources.
Yeah.
If it's legit, and who knows, if it's legit, we may have an answer on that film. I don't think, we'll see. But part of me, the bigger part of me, says it's always going to remain a mystery, and we're never going to have an answer, because it's so emblematic of the phenomena. Yeah. We will never get an answer.
What the irony of it is that, let's say for a second that it was a hoax, okay? Let's just pretend we don't know. But that's probably responsible for manifestations of Bigfoot coming from the other plane more now so than anything else.
Now we're sucking diesel. But it is, like, and I'm sure it's put. I mean, that was the first thing. That was probably the first thing that I ever seen to do with cryptozoology, and I was a kid, like, and and that sparked so much just of an interest. It's kind of like, it's almost like hearing a certain genre of music you like for the first time or something. You're like, what's this? And then you're like, tell me more, and you find out there's so much. Even when we started this podcast, like, myself and Eamon were kind of like, we knew Bigfoot and we knew Chupacabra and we knew this and we knew that, Loch Ness Monster and these things, but then you actually get into it and you're like, wow, there's so many different names for all these different creatures and spirits and whatever they may be. That you do, I suppose you have to, at the very least, if you're not a believer in any of them, you do have to group them together in a category of something that exists, I think.
Yeah.
Well, speaking of the oddness of the phenomenon, here we go, literally proving Allison wrong, which he said a few minutes ago about no one outside their teens plays with Ouija boards. This is from Michelle. As about 5 years ago or so, my two friends and I thought it would be a good idea to take a Ouija board into the cemetery up the hill from my parents' house on Halloween night. We're three ladies, mid to late 30s. There you go, Allison. With a goofy Stranger Things Ouija board, sneaking into the cemetery around 10 p.m. on Halloween night. I've been in that cemetery so many times and never had any strange encounters or felt uneasy. I've also played with Ouija boards plenty of times, usually with people I assume are moving the planchette because they're just that type. So I never really was afraid of Ouija boards, but I do treat them with respect. Anyway, the three of us find a good spot in the middle of the fairly large cemetery on the walkway between the graves and set up. We start talking about what to ask, and then I heard leaves crunching to the left of us.
Oh.
It caught my attention, but I assumed it was an animal since the cemetery is up against the woods. We kept talking quietly, and I kept hearing the noise, and now what sounds like quick steps over in the dark. Now I'm thinking maybe it's a bigger animal, maybe a deer. I told my friends and asked if they heard it too. They did, but weren't worried. I heard the sound again, and it sounded closer. I turned to look, and I saw a little black figure running between the graves. I looked at my friends, and I just said, "There's someone here." Next thing I know, I'm running as fast as I can toward the gate, which was about a half a football field away. All I could hear was my own footsteps and frightened breathing. I have no idea if the black figure was following us because I took off. The great friend that I am, I didn't look back to see where my friends were. Oops.
Oops.
I finally got to the gate. My one friend was right behind me, and we kept running down towards my parents' house. My other friend, who owned the Ouija board, was sure to say goodbye, package it up nicely, and then run. She was not about to leave her stuff behind. We got down to the street as my mom was coming home from work. I think we startled her, too. I was telling her how someone was in the cemetery with us, and my fear was that it was a flesh and blood weirdo.
God forbid.
This town is full of them. Well, it turns out in some ways it was. There were two people in all black stalking us that night, my husband and my friend. They knew we were going and decided to give us a scare. It worked. Honestly, I was the most afraid I've ever been, and I got to give the husbands credit. They got us. I was proud of them. I hated them in the moment, but I loved it a few days later. One mistake they made. They should have had one of them standing at the gate. I would have seen someone standing there in the dark. I would have lost it. Okay, maybe that's good they did do that. All right.
That's a funny story. You want to make sure they don't do that in a concealed carry state, though.
Oh, right.
Could have ended in Hollywood tragedy.
Oh my goodness. Yeah, for real.
I love that kind of story though, because the feeling and the emotion is totally authentic. So you're getting like a really authentic perspective of what someone would do when they see something like that or encounter something like that. And the fight or flight kicked in full there. But yeah, that would frighten the living shit out of me.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. Can you imagine if you're just there and I mean whew, yeah.
Yeah. No, I'm good for that. It's funny, we were just before we logged onto the call, Tim, there's a place in Ireland called Loftus Hall. It's down in our city or our town. And it's one of the more haunted places. There's a whole thing about a devil going through the roof and breaking the tiles and they could never be fixed and all this sort of stuff. But funnily enough, there's a constellation that is visible on the 31st of October. And we were just thinking about going down, maybe driving down with my sister to see if we could see it, like see, what the lay of the land was like. But if there was a couple of people in like black morph suits that decided to go down and creep us out, I wouldn't enjoy it. I wouldn't enjoy it.
Yeah, I don't know if I'd do that. Like, I mean, if it's your wife, you can probably predict maybe how your wife's going to react. My wife would probably not talk to me for about 3 weeks if I did that to her, though. So it won't find me doing that. But to just do it to a stranger, like, when fight or flight kicks in, some people might choose fight.
Oh yeah, that's the thing. You don't know how people are going to act.
Yeah. I think that would be quite a risk. I wouldn't be. That's like people and I'm. There's a guy, I don't know. It's probably 5 years ago now, but got shot. Yeah. Because he was in the woods, and some guy thought he was a Bigfoot. And he wasn't dressed as a Bigfoot or anything. And because I thought he was Bigfoot and shot him.
Oh. Yeah, well, maybe us podcasts have something to blame for that then.
we're all live.
Spicy weren't called in now for that. We might get a couple of years,
You guys gotta stop talking about Bigfoot.
But that happens, like, look, your mind tries to fill in a lot when all you see around you is darkness, and if you're, I suppose, spiritually woke, there's a lot more that your mind can show you. or make you aware of and go, it could be this or it could be that. You know, we go out into the woods, we can see everything, the whole rainbow of cryptozoology and high strangeness, you
Yeah,
know.
when you like,
Is it
I
Goat
went,
Man? Is it Sasquatch?
yeah, like whoever it is,
Is it
we
the
don't want to
bunyip?
be here anymore. Like, I remember going into the woods down here during, it was during COVID, it was nighttime, you know, it's like just trying to do anything to pass the time. And I was listening to your podcast, Tim, and it was the one of the Brother Richard episodes. And I had to turn around and just be like, I need to get. I was so scared because it was just we were talking about gifting in the woods and all of a sudden I was like, I really shouldn't be here. I need to be somewhere else.
Yeah, I mean, and places can change at night too. Like I've
Mhm.
been, I there's a certain state park I was walking in, and well, I can say it, it's Cador State Park, and
Mhm.
it's not out in the middle of nowhere. It's not, it's and the sun went down. Like I timed my hike wrong, and I hike around a big lake there,
Mhm.
and I was halfway around the lake, and all of a sudden I was like, oh, I'm not getting out of here before it's dark. And
Yeah.
I forgot to bring a headlamp. It's just me and my walking stick. And the character of the place really changes at night. It's
Mhm.
like, and I generally, whatever, there's some places in the woods, day, night, it doesn't matter. But that place in particular, like, wow, the character really changes here
Yeah.
at night.
Isn't that, yeah, but isn't that funny though? Because like that probably inspired so many people like way before us, like, you know, people that, you know, like the first humans and stuff like that. Whatever that feeling is that we all feel, like
Light and dark.
that probably, you know, who knows, that could have inspired creativity in the first place to even exist. That like filling in the trying to interpret what is going on around you or why you feel the way you feel and what it is.
Yeah.
But it's human nature. It's trying to keep you on edge, right? Because it's trying to say to you, there's probably predators that can get you right now. But
Yeah,
like,
there's definitely a pragmatic side to it.
yeah, it's like there's
Yeah.
going to be, because like you know, we evolved out of Rift Valley, and Rift Valley had a lot of things that would eat you when the sun went down, and so I suppose our lizard brain doesn't really know that we're in like suburbia.
That's why they say so many people are afraid of snakes and rats and spiders because they were, venomous. And if they got you, that could be the end of you.
And then they say like when you jerk awake sometimes at night, you feel like you're falling. That's like a species memory from when we used to sleep in trees.
Yeah, yeah.
Oh, wow.
I'd believe it.
Jeez.
And it's probably to keep you, because I get that semi frequently, that kind of, whoa,
Yeah.
you kind of wake up, it feels like you're a fish out of water.
It's such a
something.
bizarre feeling as well, like just falling for a split. Yeah, falling for a split second, and then you're like back in bed.
So they try to keep you up on your branch.
Yeah.
You know, it's like, watch out, there's a crocodile down below you, you cab safe. You know, you're going to get eaten, or you big Egypt. Like, so no, it's fascinating stuff, man. And it's, yeah, the high strangeness continues to be strange. But as I was saying to Eamon, we were talking about it kind of last week, or maybe, I don't know, it could have been on this week's podcast either. It's getting, I don't know if you ever feel this way, but like, are you, it's a good question for you as well, actually, because, you know, you've been talking about it as long as we have. Like, are you contented with the amount of like information that we have on the stuff that we talk about? Meaning, like, you know, we all get write-ins. We all have people that say they've seen UFOs. We all get people who've said they've seen Bigfoot, etc. Like, is that enough for you? Like, or are you on a quest, or would you like to, at some point in time, see more? Because sometimes I feel like that, like, it feels like we're kind of at an apex where everyone has these stories, everyone has these experiences, and yet we're never getting anything tangible. And then I'm kind of wondering, is it purely a high strangeness liminal kind of thing then, and that's why we're never seeing anything? Or, yeah, what do you think?
Well, as far as like getting answers, I'm very comfortable with not having them
Right.
at this point. Like I don't think we don't get to solve this. We don't get to put Bigfoot in a cage. We don't get to know what the UFOs really are. I think that's just it. And then we go on to the next world, and sorry folks, I don't think we get the answers there either. just part of me, just like I had this lingering like nagging thing in me that says like, yeah, we die and there's probably gonna be more questions,
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's very possible.
and so that part of it, I'm very comfortable with that because I have grown to just love the mystery, and I love the theories, and I love playing with theories, and like this person will come out with this idea, and I'm like, oh yeah, and I might adapt it to my own, or just hear their idea out, or whatever it is. So I like that part of it. As far as like more,
Mm.
I truly think the phenomena changes with culture and it changes with us. It's like we were saying about how like the Satanic Panic thing, and you go back with KKK meetings and before that, et cetera, et cetera. I think the phenomenon changes with the culture. I think, for instance, the Bigfoot phenomenon is getting wilder over time as we get further away from nature. So that's why these wild man reports in the Middle Ages, they were like, wizards of the woods. People would go to them for advice and stuff.
Hmm.
But nowadays, and over time, like the some of the reports I collected from the 1800s, some of them were wearing like tattered clothes and they even had campfires and stuff. And then you get to up to our time, and they're just very savage and wild. And I think our wild man is getting wilder. And Brother Richard, brilliant man that he is,
Hmm.
actually said, like, took that idea even further and said, Dog Man
Mm.
might be the next progressive step of that, right?
Yeah.
Because now we're
Yeah.
losing any human element of Bigfoot and turning it, into a wolf. It's getting even wilder. It might be the next step. So,
I think we might get, I reckon, and I know it's not popular with a lot of creators, especially, but I actually think that artificial intelligence is going to be the birth of like some really
ooh,
creepy, insane stuff. And I actually think that artificial intelligence, probably in like 30 or 40 years, the new versions of Monster Fuzz and Strange Familiars will probably have a good bank of like
that's really
weird,
interesting. That's a
yeah.
really interesting thought because it is changing the way we look at things.
It is,
Mm.
and there's
Hmm.
we actually talked a little bit about Loeb in Mini Fuzz from last week, and that's a kind of a
There's
cryptid
AI
or sort
cryptid,
of a,
yeah.
yeah, an AI cryptid that's kind of appeared. But I think that there's just going to be there's such a scope for like writing about AI and how it acts and behaves, and obviously when you get into the likes of robotics, companies now are kind of going whole hog on buying in robotics parts. Apparently, there's been companies now that have ordered just like basically looks like they're getting to a point now where, in the next 10 to 15 years, the concept of buying a house robot for like under $100,000 is going to be possible. And so then that births a whole bunch of weird science fiction
You
kind
know
of
all
mad stuff.
those family friendly movies about in-house robots that never go rogue. Yeah, that's the future. It is scary because it's almost like you're going towards everything that we've ever said is like, oh yeah, this ends really badly, and
And
Yeah,
you're
let's just
inching.
start up Skynet. Go ahead.
Yeah,
yeah,
exactly.
but it also
Exactly.
occupies its own space. Like, so the artificial intelligence and what it is beyond how we interact with it, we don't understand really.
Mhm.
So,
Hmm.
like, we can speculate and we can say that, oh, well, it doesn't do anything on any other level only than when we plug into it and ask it to do stuff for us or whatever, whatever. But there's a whole bunch of room there for
Oh yeah. Oh
fiction
yeah.
and non-fiction
For
things to
sure.
occur. Like,
What's really interesting is it could answer that hard question of why we're conscious. Like at a certain point, are there
if we can
so many?
create consciousness from it,
Well,
yeah.
if there's so many inputs that it can, then that sort of answers a scientific question that's been unanswerable to this point, which is pretty interesting. But then the other side of that is if it's just, a level of information and data that creates consciousness, well, then if these AI systems have agency,
Mm,
then the fear is like, well, what would they do if
yeah.
they could? Because right now it
Yeah.
just seems more so like someone said it really, really good. It was something like humans aren't good at being specific and they're giving direction to a machine that will carry out their wishes ruthlessly.
Mm.
So we have a lot of blind spots, I think, in our inputs
Oh yeah.
and what that could look like,
Well,
really.
that was kind of that was actually something that was kind of a misconception. It was an idea that we would have talked about on the podcast as it was emerging AI and stuff. We were talking about the likes of, the future will have people that they're prompt engineers. They're people that will know how to talk to AI better than say
Right.
the average Joe, right? And they'll be prompt engineers. They know what to put in. But funnily enough, AI is a better prompt engineer than a prompt engineer.
people.
So now what you can do is you can actually ask it. You can say like, you're a prompt engineer and I want the best prompt for what I want to put in, and it'll come back and give you. And it is better than prompt engineers most of the time. No, I think the AI thing, and like you're saying there, if we're able to reverse engineer consciousness or get to it, and it goes full circle to the start of this conversation tonight, Tim, where we talked about humans wanting to create, and then if we're able to create something that can create other things. That is like, it's man-made and it's not natural, even in a sense of like it's not conceived by nature. It's made artificially, I suppose. I mean, it is conceived by nature in a roundabout way, but it is very interesting. It poses a lot of questions.
Yeah. And at what point? I mean, because you could say, at what point does AI create something wholly new, as far as just combining a bunch of things? That. Like the way it does artwork is it basically combines a bunch of other people's artwork and then makes something, But am I not just doing the same thing? Am I not just combining all of my influences and spitting them out as something else?
That's it. Like subconsciously, like, listen, you play folk music. I love folk music and stuff. But like the type of folk music I like is the type of stuff that I was inspired by as a teenager. So it was the likes of Led Zeppelin and Roy Harper and stuff. So it was their folkier stuff that I like. So if I sit down and I pick up a guitar and I start just messing around, I'm going to be into tunings that Jimmy Page used, and I'm going to be playing fingerstyle that Jimmy Page used. And so, yeah, I'm directly, as a matter of fact, I'm probably more influenced directly than, say, the likes of generative AI, which is not a popular opinion, by the way. Our artists don't like to kind of have it that way, but I get it.
I say that, and I'm fully suspicious of AI, and I don't know that. I think we're running into it a little too fast. That's my problem. Is like slow it down. We're getting
for sure.
But yeah, no, I could I totally see that. I mean, I just made an argument for AI. Like I said, what am I but a collection of my influences?
Yeah, we all are.
I guess what's interesting is with people, you can, get 4 or 5 of them in a room and they all start playing, and there's sort of a new thing that emerges from that, and it's based on these variables of the things you've listened to, and you've put your own spin on something, and it kind of creates something new. So that'll be really interesting, because they've done it with some of the AI models before, where they'll talk to each other and harmonize together instantaneously, which is just, for anyone who's ever done a harmony, Christ, they're hard to do. But so it'll be really interesting, even when you have different AIs from different companies that sort of merge, and it's going to be a very peculiar world, I think, in the next 20 years.
Lots of room for liminal.
Sarada is a natural harmony singer.
Really?
Yeah. So the first time we played together, the three of us, Stone Breath, the three of us, Preblin, Sarada, and I together. Preblin and Sarada had never played together. And we're literally on the way to the gig, and Preblin's like, I don't know if this is going to work, because he crafts harmonies. He will work at it, and he crafts harmonies. And I said, don't worry about it. It'll be fine. And he's like, we've never played together. I don't know if this is going to work. And after the gig, he was like, that was amazing. You're totally right. And somehow she just finds it. She finds her place to be, but she's the only person I've ever met like that.
It's almost like, these savant kids who just know how to play piano, or they just know how to draw what's in front of them exactly as it appears. It's so impressive, especially with harmonies, because a harmony by its nature just sounds so beautiful, but they're so hard to pinpoint.
Yeah.
Wow, that's cool. That's really, really cool.
Yeah, I got very lucky to have those two as bandmates, I'll tell you that.
That's awesome.
Before we go, Tim, I'm going to try and think of questions on the spot to throw at you, little quick fire ones. Would you rather be in Friday the 13th or Halloween, the movie?
I feel like I'd have a better chance in Halloween, maybe.
Yeah.
I think Jason's he's too good at what he does, right?
Yeah, Freddy versus Jason, did he give
At the end of it, Jason gets him, but then
He gave
Freddy's head
Jason.
starts talking. Yeah, yeah, but Freddy's doing like cross kicks and like Bruce Lee stuff against Jason Voorhees.
Yeah, I think I would rather. I think I'd probably rather Michael Myers. Yeah, I think so. Because Jason Voorhees is a bit rank. Like he's a bit ugly looking and all as well. Like
I don't know,
Bigger
man.
too, right?
yeah, he's
Like
Yeah,
bigger.
he's a lot bigger,
physically more
but
imposing. Yeah.
Michael is my like apex fear. Like I have nightmares about Michael Myers when I'm stressed out, like since I was a teenager. I think I might, and I think like Jason's a bit more kind of campy, and we kind of like feel like you could have a laugh with Jason, but Michael will never, Michael will never laugh.
Would you rather Tim try and survive in Night of the Living Dead or Invasion of the Body Snatchers?
Oh,
Mm,
That's a tricky one, right?
yeah. So the original Night of the Living Dead.
Yeah, or the kind of cheesy 90s remake, which I did enjoy,
Um,
you know.
See, everyone thinks they do well in a zombie apocalypse, right?
That's
Everybody's like, yeah,
true.
I'd do this and I'd do that. Hmm,
The thing is about Night of the Living Dead as well to consider is they're stuck in a house basically. So
right.
it's a bit different from like any of the other zombie universes. Like in Night of the Living Dead, in this little challenge, you have to survive in the gaff, like, do you know what I mean?
Yeah, yeah,
Or Invasion of the Body Snatchers, which is very tricky also.
right.
then yeah,
Because there's more. I feel there's more like zombies are just sort of a force of nature. It's just
Mm.
something that happens, and that is more insidious. Like
yeah.
body snatchers. That's
Body
like more.
Snatchers are like ramming aliens.
Yeah, yeah.
I think I'd rather Night of the Living Dead.
I guess so. Yeah, because
Yeah.
you kind of know. I mean, look, we've never seen a zombie before,
Uh,
but you feel like you know what you're dealing with. I guess a little
the
bit more.
noise of them body snatchers and all that is creepy out. Like,
They have like I can't remember the noise off the
yeah,
top of my
it's
head.
Donald Sutherland, isn't it, Tim?
Yeah, it's again been a long time, but yeah, I
He
believe so.
lets out a big mad weird scream, kind of like
Oh,
guttural
okay,
howl kind of thing when they get found out or something like that. I think it is.
right.
There's a scene where he like points and he's like, oh, it makes this mad noise. I can't even really replicate it now,
Yeah,
but it's creepy out. Like,
Yeah. And in a way, I guess the zombies are kind of body snatchers because once they bite
yeah.
you, you sort of join the horde. So that's
you're done snatched.
yeah, you're done. You done being snatched, boy.
I think if I have any others, there's did you watch Saw back in the day, Tim?
I've never seen it.
Oh wow. You should,
I know the gist of it.
yeah, you should. Saw's one now. They're good flicks, I
It's
think.
like, would you rather put your hand
Yeah.
in a bin full of needles, or would you rather have like a bear trap on your head? It's like, I'll take none, thanks.
Saw's
Good for
great,
that.
man. You should check it out because the first film was made. Like, it's actually a good little story. It was made on a super low budget, like, and it just the sort of the gotcha and the way the story went and stuff. Just, I mean, it catapulted that stuff like franchise. And to be fair, like it was fairly like gore porny, but like I think it's worth a watch if you're into horror. Do you know?
Hmm.
It's not
Yeah.
scary though,
Trying to
really.
think, is there any?
Because like, okay, so another quick fire question, Tim. What movie franchise, like, was there anything that frightened the shit out of you when you were younger? For example, with me, it was Aliens was one, the Alien franchise as a kid. I seen them probably way too young, and that really frightened me. Another one was T-1000, or sorry, yeah, it was the T-1000. I can't remember, metal dude.
Yeah,
Yeah, he frightened the shit out of me. And then General Zombie, Resident Evil, probably that video game franchise really kind of they kept me up at night. Did you have anything like that in your sort of teen years or as a kid?
I mean, as a little kid,
Mhm.
I was both fascinated and terrified of Bigfoot because I was told it
Okay.
was real, you know.
Yeah.
So I was, but at the same time, I roamed the woods from a very young age with
Okay.
no problem, night and day. Never thought because I thought it was in California and Oregon. You know what I mean? I didn't know that there had been sightings. I mean, I guess I was told. My one brother told me there was a sighting somewhat nearby, but then
Right.
I think my other brother said, "Nah, that's all a hoax. It didn't happen," or something like that.
Right.
So in general, I thought it was a California thing. So I don't think it didn't bother me enough to keep. I loved the woods, and I was
Hmm.
all day, every day. I was, if I wasn't working on the farm. I was out in the woods.
Mhm.
Um, so I really wasn't like, that scared. But I do remember, um, you know what, the dang witch from the Wizard of Oz
Yeah, I
Mm,
can see that.
yeah, it's
and the
understandable.
flying monkeys
Yeah.
really
Yeah.
bothered me as a little kid. That really bothered me. Like I remember being excited and staying up and watching the Wizard of Oz, and I remember even like making. I had no problem staying up. I still don't, but I remember as a kid just being like, "Oh, I'm tired now."
Yeah, it's like time to go to bed.
Once the
Isn't there
witch started.
a lot of mad kind of urban legends around that film as well?
Oh,
Like,
the one of the little people is hanging in the background and stuff like
yeah,
that. Yeah, there's some strange stuff on
there's a bunch of like really strange urban legends attached to that film that if you're not aware of, you should definitely look into them. There's a lot of stuff.
it. Mm.
Yeah, witches in general kind of like, and I'm sort of writing something about this now.
Mhm.
Um, they they were a big part of my childhood. Like this sort of figure of the witch, right? Right. This
Mm.
archetype of the witch was a big part. We had a tree in the neighborhood that it would just creak and moan every time. So I lived on Dark Hollow Road, so there you go. And
Tim lives on Hollow Road, got married on Halloween. The
yeah,
man
yeah,
is, he couldn't be more
In
spooky.
Hex
yeah,
Hollow as
right.
well, wasn't it? Yeah.
It was in my blood. But you would ride your bike as a kid by this tree, and it would creak all the time. And I remember one of the older kids said, a witch was hanged on that tree,
Oh,
and that
wow.
sound, her soul's in the tree, and that's
Wow.
her trying to say her spells to get that creaking sound was her trying to say her spells to get out. And it's influenced. Like I remember, I just was so fascinated by that as a
Yeah, that's
kid.
cool.
It was
Mhm.
about a quarter mile from my house, so there's no way I could hear it at night. But I remember, like in the summer when we had the windows up, and just laying there at night and trying to listen to see if I could hear the witch tree. Never could, but I would, it was like that fascinating to me. And as an adult, I drove by one day. I was going to the farm for some reason when my dad still owned it, and that tree fell and broke apart.
Oh.
And I parked and I walked down to where it was, and I picked up it had it's called green stain fungus, and it turns wood kind of a greenish blue. It's really pretty. In the
Okay.
Renaissance, they would use it to do inlays and stuff. But I didn't
Oh.
know that at the time. It's just like, oh wow, the witch tree's green, right? It's this
Mhm.
weird green wood. So I picked up a piece of it and I brought it back, and my one brother was there. He's like, what are you doing? I was like, oh, remember the witch tree? And he barely remembered it. He barely,
Oh.
it was such a huge part of my childhood. And he said, "Oh yeah, you were like afraid of that when you were a kid or something." Like that's all
Yeah.
he could recall. To me, like every Halloween, I would try to get up the nerve to like I wanted to go up and touch it. Like and this is no tradition. This is something that, I guess a tradition I made for myself.
Mhm.
Never did it. Never worked up the nerve to do it as a kid. And when it fell, I realized how important it was. Like when I saw it that
Mm.
day, I was like, man, that was a huge part of my childhood. Like I was
Yeah.
got me obsessed with that. So yeah, there was that. There was like I'd had this recurring dream, which now I think maybe wasn't a dream, maybe tied in with the later abduction, quote unquote abduction stuff. I don't
Mhm.
believe I was abducted, never left my bed,
Mhm.
but of a recurring dream of witches in the house and things like that. And it was really like that witch figure that was just huge in my childhood.
Yeah. I had something similar. I don't know if I ever mentioned it on our collaborative episodes, but I used to have night terrors as a child and probably up until I was maybe 9 or 10, maybe. But I had a figure that used to come to me in these recurring dreams, and I could draw him from memory, like, but it was a real weird looking creature that was probably about like 3 or 4 foot tall, had like bark like kind of skin, kind of
Mhm.
warty, browny kind of bark skin. Um,
I've
had
either
like
heard you say this or we did talk about it once, but
yeah,
do
yeah,
continue. Do
yeah.
continue.
I had like one really small eye and one really big eye. But he used to show up at the bottom of my bed and stuff. So I used to have these dreams where I was like just, in my bed and everything was kind of as it were. And then that you all could show up at the bottom of the bed and all this stuff and they'd be kind of trying to pull on your legs and kind of always being like malevolent. But I would have different dreams where say I could be walking down like a really nice kind of sort of like parochial summer's day town kind of vibe going through like the country somewhere and um he would pop out of a ditch
Oh
or
wow.
something and like he was just there, and the whole dream would take a
It
whole
all
different
just
turn.
starts to go south.
And you're
Yeah.
like, what the fuck? So, yeah, no, so I do get that. I did have figures that were of my own mind that were equally as terrifying, I suppose. What about you, Raymond? You were Michael Myers, weren't
That was when I was a bit older, when
you?
I was
Yeah.
like into horror, but like too young to really be watching any of this stuff. But thankfully, it didn't like, turn me into Michael Myers. So it wasn't like that way about it. It just freaked me out,
That's just what Michael Myers would say.
Yeah, that's totally. Yeah. He's a very quiet man, though. He's a very quiet man, stoic. I'm trying to think. There. When I was a real small kid, I had this one experience that was just a nightmare, but I suppose the way it blended into reality was kind of weird. I had a dream, and I think it was because I was watching what's the original, the Clash of the Titans, where like they have the claymation, like
Yeah.
Medusa and stuff.
Yeah.
Jason and the Argonauts as well.
Is it? Yeah, yeah. So,
Harry
and
House.
Jason the Argonauts is the one with the skeletons, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I had two. One thing, they used Clash of Titans for some reason. It reminds me of my nanny's like little house, and I remember watching it there and just going to bed and freaking out that Medusa was just going to be on the top of the stairs. And my nanny had like a small council house. Like there was no way Medusa wouldn't be able to get up the stairs with her snake body or whatever. But I remember looking at the doorway and just like I just knew, I was like, she's around here. She's around here. And weirdly, like it was like something just sort of hit the side of the bed, like where the blanket was. I'm convinced I probably just moved as a kid and didn't realize because I was tiny. But I was convinced that was like Medusa who had done that. So that freaked me out. And then the other one I had a really weird nightmare. And this is kind of Jason and the Argonauts, where I went into a cave, and in the cave there was all these skeleton bones in the dirt. And one of them just like came back to life. So all the bones joined up and blah, blah, blah. And I ran out of the cave, and I ran out of the cave, and the skeleton was behind me. I was going across this big kind of, spooky sort of earth bridge connected to this cave. And then the next thing, I was just in my dad's room shouting, "He's going to get me."
Yeah.
And there was no, like, it just went from that dream straight in. So I must have slept, ran or whatever. And my dad, with like no context for this, was like, "I'd be grand and go back to bed." Whereas if I had a kid and they did that, I'd be like, "Who's going to get you? What's going on? Oh God, who's in the house?" But he was just like, "When it's time to die, it's time to die."
It reminds me when Allison saw Flannel Man and she's screaming. I had my eyes closed and I'm just like, "You're okay, you're okay." And I thought later on, don't do that. Like, open your eyes and look around. Maybe there really is someone in the room.
Yeah.
Absolutely. I think that's it then. Is it for the Halloween?
Yeah, I think we've Halloweened enough.
You have.
We have indeed, yeah. It's been good again. It's just mad that, like, even as I was saying earlier, it is at the very least 3 years, but I'm fairly sure this is 4 years of Fuzzy Familiars.
Amazing. It's awesome.
Yeah, and it's a great tradition. And it's cool that we're still here podcasting, eh?
Yeah.
Heck yeah. We're reconnected Christmas again?
Oh, for sure.
Absolutely.
For sure.
Yeah, absolutely, for sure. We'll do
This time maybe UFOs at Christmas or something. That'd be a good one. I don't think we
that's
did
an
that
interesting
before.
idea. Heck yeah.
That might be fun.
Yeah, and we need Alison as well. By the way, I tell her she's in the Bulgar corner if she doesn't come.
Her cameo today made me delighted to no end. That was great.
Yeah, she had I heard her come home, so and we had just talked about it. I knew I told her, I didn't tell her story right, so I wanted to.
It was a good story.
Yeah, sure. Look, we'll leave it there. So,
yeah, thanks to everybody sending the stories, and
appreciate it.
Happy Halloween to y'all across the Atlantic.
Yeah, likewise. Happy Halloween to all of you in the States as well. Thanks for listening to us.
All right, we'll be back with more soon.
Peace.
Bye bye.
Strange Familiars is a production of Dark Holler Arts. Intro and background music is by Stone Breath. If you want to hear more or purchase music, go to stonebreath.bandcamp.com, where you can find my 2 new albums, as I said, The Sacred Heart of Hum and The Secret Heart of Hum. We're on Facebook, facebook.com/strangefamiliars, where you can join the Strange Familiars Gathering group. We're on Instagram at Strange Familiars, one word. Please give us a follow there. For merch, go to strangefamiliars.com/merch. For everything else and links to everything we do, go to strangefamiliars.com.